For 3 years, my friends thought I was struggling. My family was worried. My coworkers probably thought I was flat broke. I drove a 10-year-old car, I packed my lunch every single day, and I never had the newest anything. But what they didn't know was that I was playing a different game. While everyone else was trying to look rich, I was secretly getting rich. This is how acting like I had nothing was the secret to saving my first $100,000. It wasn't about being cheap, it was about being strategic. It was a choice to trade short-term validation for long-term freedom. And in this video, I'm going to pull back the curtain and show you exactly how I did it, rule by rule, so you can do it too. Before this whole secret plan started, my financial life was average. And honestly, that's what was so scary about it. I wasn't drowning in debt, but I wasn't making any real progress either. I had a decent job, paid my bills on time, and at the end of the month, there was usually a little bit of money left over. That leftover cash felt like a win, like a small prize to be spent on a nice dinner, a new gadget, or a weekend trip. I was living in a comfortable illusion, thinking that because I wasn't going backward, I must be moving forward. But I wasn't. I was just treading water. The world around us screams a very clear message: success looks like more. A bigger apartment, a newer car, fancier vacations, trendier clothes. It's a relentless pressure, isn't it? You get a raise, and your first thought isn't how much more can I save, it's what can I upgrade? This is the silent poison of lifestyle creep, where your expenses just magically rise to meet your income. I saw it happening to everyone. Friends would get a promotion and immediately sign a lease on a pricier apartment or a new car. It's wild. A recent study found that a shocking 36% of people earning over $200,000 a year are living paycheck to paycheck, all because of this. They were earning more, but they weren't getting wealthier. They were just financing a more expensive cage. My aha moment wasn't some lightning strike, but more of a slow burn. It was seeing a mentor, a guy I knew was incredibly successful, drive a simple, dependable car and wear the same modest watch every day. It was reading The Millionaire Next Door and realizing that most truly wealthy people in America don't look like they do on TV, they look like your unassuming neighbor. They prioritize financial independence way more than showing off a high social status. I started to see the matrix. The people I thought were rich were often just high spenders. They had the symbols of wealth, but were they actually free? Could they walk away from a job they hated? Could they survive a sudden financial crisis? For most of them, the answer was no. They were trapped by their own lifestyle. That's when I asked myself the big question: what if I did the exact opposite? What if, instead of trying to look rich, I focused entirely on being rich, in secret? What if I acted broke? Not for pity, but as a power move. This wasn't going to be about pretending to be poor, it was about launching a silent, personal revolution against the expectations that keep so many of us on the hamster wheel. The secret plan revealed. So, I made a decision. I was going to run a multi-year experiment in what I call stealth wealth. The mission: save $100,000 as fast as I possibly could. The method was totally counterintuitive. To the outside world, my financial life would look like it was stalling, or maybe even going backward. Everyone could think I was broke. It was all part of the plan. This wasn't a budget, it was a battle plan. It wasn't about being stingy, it was about being a financial ghost. While my friends were upgrading their lives with every pay bump, I locked my lifestyle in place. Every raise, every bonus, every extra dollar I earned would vanish before it ever had a chance to be spent. It went straight into savings and investments, disappearing from my checking account so I wouldn't even be tempted. This is the core of fighting lifestyle creep. When your income goes up, you have to make sure your savings rate goes up even more than your spending. I knew this would be more of a psychological game than anything else. It meant saying no a lot. It meant getting comfortable not having the latest and greatest. It meant detaching my ego from my stuff. And yeah, it meant watching other people get all the trappings of success while I was quietly stacking up the substance of it. The beauty of acting broke is that it frees you from pressure. When people think you're just being careful with money, they stop expecting you to keep up with expensive dinners or gifts. You pretty much just take yourself out of the rat race. I told no one. This was key. Sharing the plan would have invited opinions, judgment, and maybe even well-intentioned sabotage. It had to be my secret. The goal was to build a fortress of financial security, brick by invisible brick, until it was unshakable. To pull this off, I didn't just try to save more. I made a set of non-negotiable rules for every financial decision. These weren't suggestions, they were laws. And today, I'm sharing the 7 core secrets that were the backbone of my plan to save that first $100,000. Each one is a piece of the puzzle, a deliberate step off the conventional path and onto the path of real financial freedom. The rules/secrets. Secret number 1, the unimpressive ride. The first place I declared war on lifestyle creep was my driveway. In our culture, a car isn't just how you get around, it's a statement. It's usually the second biggest expense after housing, and for a lot of people, it's the most visible symbol of how well they're doing. And that's the trap. The quiet rich know that stealth wealth starts in the driveway. Conventional wisdom says when you get a good job, you reward yourself with a nice car. You deserve it, right? So you sign up for a 5-year loan, telling yourself the monthly payment is manageable. But what you're really signing up for is 5 years of guaranteed wealth destruction. The average new car payment today is a wild $749 a month. That's almost $9,000 a year. And it's not just the payment. It's the higher insurance. It's the soul-crushing depreciation. That car loses thousands in value the second you drive it off the lot. It's an asset that aggressively loses value, all while draining your cash flow every month. My act broke strategy was simple and brutal. I drove the most unimpressive, reliable car I could find. It was a 10-year-old Toyota. The paint was faded, it had a few dings, and it definitely didn't turn any heads. My friends would joke, "Where are you gonna get a real car?" I'd just laugh and say, "Hey, this one still gets me from A to B." What they saw was a guy who couldn't afford a better car. What I saw was a secret weapon. Let's just do the math. My paid-off, boring car cost me about $100 a month in insurance and maybe $50 a month on average for maintenance. Let's call it $150 a month total. A buddy of mine at the time, making similar money, leased a brand new luxury sedan. His payment was $650. His insurance was $250. That's $900 a month. The difference between his car cost and mine was $750. Every single month. That's $9,000 a year that wasn't going to a car company or an insurer. It was going straight into my investment account. Over the 3 years of my savings push, that one decision, to drive a boring car, added over $27,000 to my $100,000 goal. But the real win was psychological. By refusing to play the car status game, I was making a powerful statement to myself: my self-worth is not tied to the hunk of metal I drive. Driving that old car every day was a reminder of my real goal, freedom. Every time I turned the key, I wasn't just starting an engine, I was reaffirming my commitment to building real wealth, not just looking like I had it. It freed up so much mental energy. I wasn't worried about door dings or the newest model coming out. My car was a tool, and it was doing its job perfectly by being cheap and reliable. This is one of the most powerful moves you can make. The goal isn't to impress anyone, it's to outlast them. Secret number 2, the $1 million lunchbox. The second battleground in my secret war on spending was the daily lunch. Now, this might sound small, but stick with me. Tiny daily habits have a compounding effect that's almost impossible to believe until you see the numbers. And buying lunch at work is a perfect example of a silent wealth killer. The usual thinking is that you're too busy to pack a lunch. It's a small indulgence, a way to break up the day, to hang out with coworkers. A $15 lunch here, a $20 team meal there, it barely even registers. You tell yourself it's for networking. But in reality, for most of us, it's just a habit of convenience that costs a fortune. You're trading future wealth for a few minutes of saved effort in the morning. My act broke strategy was to become a master of the lunchbox. I made it a non-negotiable rule: I do not buy lunch at work. Period. Sunday nights became my meal prep time. I'd cook big batches of chicken, rice, and roasted veggies. I made soups, chilies, pastas, you name it. My coworkers would see me in the break room with my kind of sad-looking Tupperware while they walked in with fancy salads and gourmet sandwiches. I'm sure some of them felt sorry for the struggling guy who had to bring his own lunch every day. But let's look at the math again. The average cost of lunch near my office was about $18 with a drink. If I bought lunch just 3 times a week, that was $54. Over a month, that's about $216. Over a year, it's over $2,500. And that's being conservative. Lots of people buy lunch 5 days a week, pushing that annual cost to well over $4,000. My packed lunches? They cost about $3 per meal. That's a daily savings of $15. Over a year, 5 days a week, that's a difference of almost $3,900. Multiply that by 3 years, and we're talking about $11,700 saved just from not buying lunch. It's not a small indulgence, it's a car, it's a down payment, it's a huge chunk of your freedom fund. The mental shift here is huge. When you pack your lunch, you're making a conscious choice to pay yourself first. You're putting your long-term goals ahead of short-term gratification. It's a little act of discipline that reinforces your big goal every single day. It felt like I had a secret. While others were spending their future, I was investing mine. It's not about depriving yourself of good food, it's about understanding the true cost of convenience and choosing to invest in yourself instead. That boring-looking lunchbox wasn't a sign of poverty, it was a symbol of power. It was my $1 million lunchbox. By the way, if these first 2 secrets are already getting your gears turning, and you want more unconventional strategies on building real wealth without the flash, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. We're just getting started, and the next secret is about how I made my income literally disappear. Secret number 3, the ghost income. This next secret is where the plan really picks up speed. Saving money is powerful, but it has a limit. There's only so much you can cut. To hit $100,000 quickly, I knew I had to attack the other side of the equation. I had to make more money. But I had to do it in a way that fit the whole act broke philosophy. The typical path when you want to earn more is to get a second job, and then your lifestyle slowly inflates to match that new, higher income. You start justifying more spending because you're working so hard and you've earned it, right? But that's just another trap. The point of extra income shouldn't be to fund a better lifestyle now, it should be to buy your freedom sooner. My strategy was what I call ghost income. I picked up side hustles, but I treated the money like it didn't exist. It was never, ever deposited into my main checking account. It never touched my daily budget. I set up a completely separate bank account at a different bank. All the money from my freelance writing and consulting gigs went directly into this ghost account. And from there, it was automatically transferred into my investment account. I never saw it, I never touched it, and most importantly, nobody around me knew about it. This was critical for 2 reasons. First, it completely wiped out the temptation to spend it. By making it automatic and keeping it separate, I basically tricked my own brain. My day-to-day financial life was still based only on my main salary, which forced me to keep living frugally. That ghost income was for my future self, not my present self. Second, it kept up the broke facade. My lifestyle didn't change one bit. My spending, my car, my clothes, my apartment, nothing about my life suggested I was earning more money. If you want to keep people's expectations low and avoid the pressure to spend, you cannot let them know you have more money. This is the art of quiet riches. Let's break down the impact. Through my side hustles, I was able to bring in an extra $800 a month, on average. That's $9,600 a year of pure, untouched savings. Over 3 years, That's $28,800. This was the rocket fuel for my $100,000 goal. It was money earned in the evenings and on weekends, and it went straight into the machine, compounding quietly in the background. The psychological edge this gave me was massive. It felt like a secret superpower. I knew that every extra hour I worked was directly buying me years of freedom down the line. It turned the side hustle from a chore into a mission. I wasn't just trading my time for money, I was trading my time for independence. This is a huge mindset shift. Don't just get a side hustle. Give that money a secret identity and a one-way ticket to your investment accounts. Let it be the ghost in your financial machine. Secret number 4, the invisible wardrobe. The fourth front in my war on spending was my closet. Fast fashion and the constant cycle of trends are designed for one thing: to make you feel like what you already own isn't good enough. It's a brilliant business model built on making you feel dissatisfied. The pressure to have a new outfit for every event, to keep up with the latest styles, it's a massive and totally unnecessary drain on your wealth. The common mindset is that your appearance reflects your success. You need the sharp suit, the designer bag, the trendy sneakers. To look the part, you have to spend the money. But this is just another performance. It's choosing to look rich over actually being rich. My act broke strategy was to build an invisible wardrobe. The goal wasn't to look sloppy, but to become timeless and immune to trends. I did this with a two-part attack: embracing high-quality second-hand clothes and adopting a personal uniform. Instead of buying cheap, trendy stuff that would fall apart in a year, I invested in classic, well-made pieces from thrift and consignment shops. You would be amazed at the quality you can find if you just have a little patience. A $500 blazer that someone wore twice can be yours for $40. High-end jeans for a fraction of the retail price. The key is quality over quantity. My second move was the uniform. For work, I had a simple rotation of a few pairs of slacks and a bunch of similar, solid-colored shirts. For weekends, it was simple jeans and plain t-shirts. I know, it sounds boring, but it was liberating. It completely erased decision fatigue in the morning and killed any impulse to shop for something new. I was channeling guys like Steve Jobs or Mark Zuckerberg, who famously wore the same thing every day to reduce mental clutter and focus on what actually matters. Let's look at the financial impact. The average person can easily spend hundreds, if not thousands, a year on clothes. By switching almost entirely to secondhand and just buying way less stuff, I figure I cut my clothing budget from a potential $200 a month down to maybe $30. That's a savings of $170 a month, or $2,040 a year. Over 3 years, that's another $6,120 in the pile. I would also sell clothes I didn't need anymore and use that cash to fund any new, second-hand, finds. The psychological benefit was this new sense of peace. I just wasn't playing the frantic consumerism game anymore. I felt confident in my simple, classic style because it was a choice, not a limitation. It was a rejection of the idea that my value was tied to the logo on my shirt. My wardrobe became invisible, and that let my bank account become very visible, at least to me. Your clothes should work for you, not the other way around. Building an invisible wardrobe makes you immune to trends and lets you invest your money in something that never goes out of style: financial freedom. Secret number 5, the Fort Knox of housing. This secret is the big one. It's the single biggest lever you can pull to totally change your financial future. Housing is the largest expense for almost everyone. And because of that, it's the most dangerous place for lifestyle creep to set in. The dream we're all sold is the dream home. As soon as you get a stable job, the pressure starts to buy the biggest, nicest house you can possibly qualify for. Lenders will happily approve you for a mortgage that stretches your budget to its absolute breaking point. We see our homes as an investment, but for many, they become a financial prison. A high mortgage or rent payment is a fixed claim on your future, a non-negotiable bill that decides how much freedom you have. My act broke strategy was to treat my housing like my primary savings tool, not a status symbol. I deliberately chose to live way below my means. While my colleagues were moving into trendy downtown lofts or buying huge houses in the suburbs, I stayed in a modest, one-bedroom apartment in a less cool, but safe, neighborhood. It wasn't glamorous. It didn't have a rooftop pool or a fancy gym. It was just a place to live. This decision was met with confusion. "You're still living there?" people would ask. "You could afford something so much nicer." And they were right. I could have afforded it. But I understood the opportunity cost. Every extra dollar spent on housing was a dollar that couldn't be invested and put to work for me. Let's do the math on this, because it's staggering. My rent was $1,200 a month. A lot of my peers were paying $2,000, $2,500, or even more for their nicer places. Let's just take a conservative difference of $800 a month. That is $9,600 a year. Over the 3-year savings push, that decision alone saved me $28,800. If you compare it to someone who bought an expensive house and was saddled with property taxes, insurance, and maintenance, the difference would be even bigger. The psychological impact of keeping my biggest fixed costs so low was incredible. It created a ton of breathing room in my budget. I never felt house poor. I never had to worry about a surprise expense blowing up my finances. It gave me a foundation of security that made all my other saving efforts possible. It was the bedrock of my entire plan. My humble apartment was my financial fortress, my Fort Knox. Think about your housing. The rule of thumb is to keep it under 30% of your pre-tax income. The stealth wealth move is to aim for 25%, or even less if you can. Making a deliberate, countercultural choice to live in a more modest home than you can afford is the most powerful financial decision you will ever make. It's the master key that unlocks the fastest path to wealth. Secret number 6, the black hole budget. All of these secrets, the car, the lunch, the side hustle, the clothes, the housing, they would have been useless without an engine to power them. That engine was my budget. But this wasn't a normal budget. A normal budget tracks what you've already spent. My budget was a forward-looking weapon. I called it the black hole budget because its only job was to make money disappear into savings before I could even think about spending it. The usual approach to budgeting is pretty passive. You look back at the end of the month and see where your money went. You might feel a little guilty, promise to do better, and then repeat the same mistakes. It doesn't work because it relies on willpower, and willpower runs out. My act broke strategy was built on 2 things: zero-based budgeting and extreme automation. At the start of each month, I'd give every single dollar of my expected income a job before it even hit my account. So much for rent, so much for utilities, so much for groceries, and a huge, pre-decided chunk for investing. There was nothing left over in a vague spending money category. My spending money was whatever was left in the grocery budget. If I wanted to see a movie, that money had to come out of another category. It forced me to be incredibly intentional with every purchase. But the real secret sauce was the automation. I treated my savings and investments like the most important bill I had to pay. The day my paycheck landed, automatic transfers were already set up to whisk the money away. A huge piece went straight to my investment accounts. Another chunk went to a high-yield savings account for my emergency fund. What was left in my checking account was only what I needed for my basic, pre-planned monthly bills. This system was brutally effective. It completely took me out of the equation. There was no decision to make, no temptation to fight. The money was gone before I could get my hands on it. This is what it means to pay yourself first in the most aggressive way possible. My savings rate wasn't some hopeful goal, it was a fixed, automated expense. The math here is just the sum of all the other parts. By keeping my lifestyle flat and automatically sending every raise, every bonus, and all my side hustle money straight to investments, my savings rate skyrocketed. It started at 20% of my income and, by the end of the 3 years, it had climbed to over 60% as my income grew, but my expenses stayed the same. The feeling was one of total control. I wasn't just hoping I'd have money left, I was telling my money exactly where to go. Automation is the key to building habits that actually stick. It makes your long-term goals the default setting. My checking account balance was always deceptively low, which just reinforced my act broke mindset. I couldn't spend money I didn't see. The black hole budget was the engine of my wealth machine, silently and relentlessly pulling everything toward my goal of freedom. Secret number 7, the free fun philosophy. This final secret might be the toughest for a lot of people because it's about our social lives. So much of how we hang out today is built around spending money: brunch, dinners, concerts, bars, you name it. It's easy to feel like you have to choose between having friends and saving money. Conventional wisdom says that to be happy and social, you have to spend. Saying no to things makes you seem cheap or boring. That social pressure is a huge driver of mindless spending, and it can be really hard to resist. Nobody wants to be left out. My act broke strategy was to develop what I call the free fun philosophy. This wasn't about becoming a hermit, it was about proactively changing what fun meant and separating it from spending. Instead of just passively accepting expensive invitations, I became the one who organized free or cheap activities. I'd host potlucks at my apartment instead of going to pricey restaurants. I'd suggest a hike on Saturday morning instead of $1.25 a plate brunch. I hosted game nights, organized pickup frisbee games at the park, and became an expert on all the free museum days and community events in my city. When I did get invited to something expensive, I learned to say no without feeling guilty. I'd be honest but quick: that sounds awesome, but it's not in my budget this month. I'd love to catch up next week for a walk, though. This did two things: it respectfully declined, and it immediately offered a free alternative, showing that I valued the friendship, not just the expensive activity. At first, it was a little awkward. Some friends didn't get it. But the real ones did. My social circle slowly shifted to include more people who valued experiences over spending. The financial impact here is harder to nail down than the other secrets, but it's massive. A single night out can easily cost $100. A weekend of social stuff could be hundreds. By consciously shifting my free time toward free activities, I probably saved at least $300 to $400 a month compared to my old habits. That's another $4,800 a year, or $14,400 over 3 years. The psychological change was the best part. I discovered that the most memorable moments with friends almost never had anything to do with how much money we spent. A deep conversation on a long hike is way more valuable than shouting over music in a crowded bar. I learned to find joy in simplicity. This isn't about deprivation, it's about being intentional. It's about choosing to fill your life with experiences that are rich in connection, not cost. The free fun philosophy was the final piece of the puzzle that let me build wealth without giving up a rich and fulfilling social life. The turning point. So for 3 years, I lived by these 7 secrets. I drove the boring car, packed the sad lunch, and lived in the unimpressive apartment. I watched my investment account grow, brick by invisible brick. The number started small, then it crossed $25,000. I kept my head down and stuck to the plan. Then it hit $50,000, the halfway point. By then, the habits were so automatic they just felt normal. The system was working. The automation was unstoppable. The moment I hit the $100,000 mark wasn't loud or dramatic. No fireworks went off. I was at home on a Tuesday night, doing my monthly financial check-in. I logged into my investment portal, updated my spreadsheet, and there it was. The net worth column ticked over from 5 figures to 6. $100,147. I just stared at the screen for a minute. I thought I'd feel this huge rush of excitement, a desire to pop champagne and celebrate. But that's not what I felt. The feeling was much deeper and quieter. It was a profound sense of peace. It was the feeling of a heavy weight being lifted off my shoulders, a weight I didn't even realize I was carrying. It was the feeling of security. It was the feeling of freedom. In that moment, I owned my time. I knew that if I wanted to, I could quit my job and live for a year or two without earning another dollar. I knew that if a real emergency happened, a medical issue, a family crisis, I could handle it without going into debt. That number on the screen wasn't just money. It was options. It was a buffer against all the chaos in the world. It was a foundation. The irony was overwhelming. To the world, I was still the guy who was probably struggling. My friends were still driving their new cars, my coworkers were still buying their fancy lunches, and everyone was still living their lives on the financial hamster wheel. They had no idea that on that quiet Tuesday night, I had reached a level of financial security that many of them, despite all their spending, might never know. That turning point cemented the core lesson of this whole journey in my mind. True wealth isn't what you show, it's what you don't have to show. It's not about the car or the house. It's about having a paid-off car, a manageable rent, and a wardrobe that doesn't scream for attention. It's about having an investment portfolio that works for you 24/7, silently building your freedom in the background. It was the moment I truly understood that acting broke was the richest thing I had ever done. The after picture and the real definition of wealth. So what happened after I hit $100,000? Did I suddenly cash out, buy a sports car, and start making it rain at fancy restaurants? The truth is, basically nothing changed. And that's the whole point. The goal was never just to hit a number. The goal was to build a system and a mindset that naturally leads to building wealth. The habits I had built over those 3 years were just part of who I was now. I had learned to get more satisfaction from watching my investment account grow than from any purchase I could make. The desire to flex was gone. It had been replaced by a quiet confidence. I didn't need to prove my success to anyone because I had already proven it to myself, in the only way that matters. I realized the real definition of wealth isn't being able to spend a lot of money. It's the ability to not have to think about money at all. It's about having choices. It's the freedom to design your life around your values, not your bills. Today, my financial life is still guided by those same principles. I still drive a modest car, though it's a little newer now. I still pack my lunch most days. I still prioritize saving and investing a huge chunk of my income. But there's less intensity now. Hitting that first $100,000 is the hardest part. As the great investor Charlie Munger said, getting that first $100,000 is a struggle. But after that, the momentum shifts. Your money starts to really work for you. That $100,000, invested and left alone, can become $1 million over time without you adding another penny. It's the launch pad. My life now is infinitely richer than it was before, and it has nothing to do with spending. It's the peace of mind from knowing I have a solid emergency fund. It's the excitement of knowing my investments are generating passive income. It's freedom from the stress and anxiety that plagues so many people living paycheck to paycheck, no matter how much they make. If this story, this philosophy of acting broke to get truly rich, resonates with you, then you're in the right place. This channel is for people who are done with the performance of wealth and are ready to start building the real thing. It's for people who value financial freedom over financial flash. So, if you want to join a community of quiet wealth builders, do 2 things for me right now. First, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss the next video. Second, I have a weekly newsletter where I share one actionable stealth wealth tip that I don't share anywhere else. The link is in the description below. Sign up, and let's start building your freedom fund together.